love to, welcome Tarun and Shailesh on stage.
Thanks, Swali. That was great. Really appreciate the introduction and being here. It's great to be here with Tarun. Tarun is an entrepreneur I really respect a lot because when did you start Ather?
2013. So just finished 10 years.
And how many people thought you were completely crazy when you were doing it?
Outside of a professor and one angel investor, nobody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
So I mean, I think the journey that Ather's been on, what they have created, is paved the road for many, many people behind them. And with that, Tarun, so you would have gone through many firsts in this journey, done many things that no one else had even considered to do as a venture-funded startup trying to build a vehicle.
Lakhani, you have to hide yourself and then start the session.
And if you look back at your journey, what are some of the things that you're really happy with the way that you did them? And some other things that you would have changed, that you feel like, if you had to do it again, you have done it differently?
I think something I would do differently looking back in retrospect, pretty standard first-time entrepreneur mistake. I would market better. And I would spend a lot more time on sales very early on. I don't know how we would have done it, but that would have made a significant difference for us. It would have been a significant accelerant for us a few years back. So slowly marketing, and we made the classical mistake of thinking if you build a great product, everybody will come to you, right? And then despite having met so many great entrepreneurs who told us otherwise, despite having damn read every single book, inviting so many people in college to give the same damn speech, we still did not understand how little people know about your company in the early years. So we launch and we are like, yeah, the entire country knows about us. And every brand tag survey still tells us, nobody knows about you in UP. Nobody knows about you in Rajasthan. So we would have done marketed better early on, definitely. What I'm proud of, I think the way we build the team. I think that has been the single most impactful thing what we did at Ather. I believe that the biggest IP is the way we do product development and the team that's behind it. To give you a sense, almost all our engineering leads, all our design and all our product leads are homegrown at Ather, which means they joined Ather practically first out of college. And 8 years, 9 years later, they're all with Ather. So I think that's been an extremely low attrition at that level for us. And that's kind of allowed us to do a higher degree of product quality, purely because the team that built it is still building it. So we haven't had a lot of churn, a lot of attrition there. Actually, a lot of key things, like even things like creative. We've been able to hold together a team really well over a long period of time. I think how we did it and how we inspired the confidence in really, really high caliber people, I think that we probably did something very good there, very correct there.
Awesome. Yeah, if I think of what you've built and building an automotive or even any sort of hardware startup is super hard. As in, you have to think of an idea, pick a market segment, go through design of something that will probably take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years to create, and understand what the market will be like then. And the supply chain challenges, the working capital challenges, finding vendors, all those aspects are things that are very, very hard. And overall, like, you guys have seen that the manufacturing ecosystem in certain aspects in India is very immature, and much needs to be done. If you think of that, like, what are some of the things to scale manufacturing that you guys have seen, and what do you think needs to happen for manufacturing to scale to, the levels to really be a real competitor to China?
Right. So we had a slightly different starting. We never actually thought of all these details when we started up. So we had internally between me and Swapnil, we had like a 30 to 40 year plan where we underappreciated and said we'll build scooters and we build two-wheelers for the first 10 years. Then we'll get into energy and we'll build distributed power generation and storage. And then we'll get into grids by the 30th year mark. So we sort of skip through a lot of the details in writing this really, really long-term roadmap. I think so we never really appreciated how tough manufacturing in India will be, or how actually not manufacturing. I should rephrase. I think in our 10 years, and India's changed a lot. In our 10 years, we never really found manufacturing to be very hard. The actual job of running a plant is very hard. And I think that's a mistake a lot of people make from outside. That wow, running a plant is like crazy, so much money, so much people. Actually, you've got phenomenal systems for running people and managing people in India at scale for manufacturing. You've got a very low capex system. Like somebody was just asking me outside. I said, Ather's put in about 350 million in R&D over the last 10 years. I have less than $10 million worth of capex on my books today. Right?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, like the total capex that we put every year is less than 10% of our total money spent, generally. Like not including material purchases, obviously. Yeah.
Sure.
So capex is a very small part of manufacturing, unless you're into hardcore things like you're setting up a casting shop, you're setting up an EMS business. That's different. But most manufacturing, the way you and I think of, let's say what Ather's doing or what Boat is doing, capex is a very small element. The hard part of manufacturing always has been the supplier ecosystem and product development. And by product development, I don't mean a bunch of designers sitting in a really fancy office and designing. We do that. But the second part, which is called manufacturing engineering, that's damn difficult. And it's difficult because India does not have an ecosystem around that. How to move a great prototype, something that you can build 10, 20, 30, 40 pieces of. How do you move that into production with the right cost structure and quality? It's taken us 4 years. It took us 4 years to take an amazing looking vehicle, which we launched, by the way, to a place where by standard metrics, it was the right quality and the right cost. It took us 4 years. And what we realized is the manufacturing ecosystem it does not exist in the sense we don't have people who do manufacturing engineering in India that well. People who've gotten the exposure of doing manufacturing engineering really well on our side and the supplier side. So I think as India becomes a large, and it is a given now, given how the overall macro is, India will be doing manufacturing at scale. The only pockets, there's some pockets in automotive where there is increasing competence building up in how do you, actually India automotive has had a big failure in suppliers. Suppliers are terrific manufacturers. You give them something that already works, they can keep spamming that out day in and day out at a lower cost structure than China. In fact, that was our experience. When we began production, we began in China and we quickly moved to India because India was cheaper by at least 10%. The problem is starting manufacturing in India. And that's because even most of our suppliers don't have the spare bandwidth and don't have the engineering depth to figure out what is the process you want me to run. I don't know. Tell me what you want me to do. What is it that you want me to measure every day? I don't know what bugs will I encounter. That part is a weak part. It is getting fixed already, but once that gets fixed, I think we have all the right ingredients in place.
That's great to hear. Yeah, in the hardware world, we hear like Shenzhen in China has that figured out to go from prototyping to scale. Do you think that's what we need?
I think there will be some differences. I think it would be actually better for us to not just be a manufacturing powerhouse by just pure sheer scale. That's what China achieved. I think it'll be a far richer growth for us if we did our own products, right? If we see, and India already has the DNA. I think there's enough entrepreneurial confidence and DNA कि हम खुद का बनाएंगे. We can imagine a new concept. I don't believe that that's a problem, that people think, that at least there are some entrepreneurs who can't think that. I think it would be better for us to do a better than Shenzhen policy. I think we could do a weaker than Shenzhen in terms of just pure economics of scale. I think like setting up an entire town for making buttons, that kind of shit can only happen in China. India mein utna coherence nahi hai, right? Like we can't set up towns to just do one damn thing, right? Like there's enough complexity that'll come in. But we could do this journey of productionization, this manufacturing engineering journey really well, and move really new products and really new concepts to production early on, and hence have a superior margin, a superior value add as businesses than what China achieved. Maybe our end results will not look very different because China always has had better scale, and I think India will always struggle in bringing that kind of efficiency. But And hence we'll have to change the game. If we try to just copy China, we will never be as efficient or as disciplined as them. Let's just acknowledge that, at least for now. Then can we be more innovative than what China did? Can we work on newer products? Can we work on more higher value products? I think that's probably a better outcome for everybody involved. Even if you look at EV, had we gone down the China route, and China had a brilliant success. I remember when we were starting Ather, reading up this some World Bank report, I forget, World Bank or Development Bank. There were 450 companies manufacturing motors for electric scooters in China. They have like this amazing ability to just commoditize everything, always. And if you've got 450 competent people doing motor manufacturing in China, you can bet you will get the lowest cost structure, right? India will be lucky to have 30 eventually, right? We will not have more than 30. So we will never bring that scale in. And it's good we did not, because what it allowed our industry to do is, today India has the most sophisticated EV two-wheeler tech in the world, right? It's a very niche thing that we've been able to go deep in. Not just us, actually, I'm saying for our industry. The kind of tech that India is today working on is absolutely cutting edge on EV two-wheelers. And I hope increasingly many more niches in EV, which China will never get to. China's actually gotten to a place where they've commoditized themselves so much that two-wheeler EV manufacturing in China is a shit business. It's like a damn commodity business. Koi nahi jayega. There's no R&D that flows into this. We took a different path, and I think that's a copybook. That's a playbook worth copying for many other places.
That makes lots of sense. That stay close to the customer and build the end product and include the design. So there's lots of things going on in hardware and that ecosystem. I'm sure you see lots of founders who come to you for advice. Where do you think India can be with respect to building hardware in the next decade?
Actually, my question is not very different. My answer is not very different from what I answered, right? I think if you're doing hardware, I think you're better off pursuing a new product opportunity, something that nobody else is building anywhere in the world. It is still not super easy because we're still developing the manufacturing engineering muscle in India. We don't have a ridiculously large pool of talent. But because of that same damn reason, if you can bring something to the market as a pioneer, you will build a brand and you will be the only ones who can do it. It's so damn difficult that you've got an automatic moat. Just the process of doing it guarantees a certain amount of moat for yourselves, right? So I think my bet is that we will see less China kind of same thing, but at scale. We'll see a lot of B2C success with hardware in India. I think manufacturing, which is backed by a very powerful brand building, is the way forward, and not just quite in the background manufacturing. But let me flip that question for you, Shailesh, because I told you I will do this, right? If manufacturing is going to scale up, it's going to need more dollars, right? It's going to need more investment, and genuine dollars, not just rupees. So and it's obvious. It's not a question. It's obvious that at this point, venture investors still haven't cracked how to back hardware at any meaningful scale. Like I'm sure some experiments are happening. We got lucky with one venture investment in our early days, but largely we've been a story of strategic or late stage PE capital backing us. What's happening?
It's a great question. And look, venture capital has gone through phases. The early days of venture capital, like I'm talking 30, 40, 50 years ago when it first started, was funding things like semiconductors, was funding things like disk drives, was funding things like PC manufacturers, the earliest days. But I'd say the last 2 or 3 decades have moved to much more things at the application level or software type companies. And software companies have a very different type of supply chain into them. It's basically you have people who build software. If you want to incorporate other software in it, you download it off the internet and you pay a license fee. And it's very simple. There's very little understanding of things like working capital in our business, unfortunately, because most of the companies we've invested in are related to doing things that don't need any of it. And supply chains and finding suppliers and developing them and managing them, they're all new things. So over the last several years, we've certainly dipped our toe into making investments in hardware, and it's accelerating. There's limited early success, and I think that's why the dipping your toe has not resulted in like a massive wave of investment from venture, but it's coming.
Is it fair to say that right now the industry as a whole, not specifically our fund, but the industry as a whole the venture industry as a whole does not have a playbook of how hardware makes money for the fund?
Absolutely.
What timelines, what
Absolutely.
exits,
Yeah.
and so the risk profile is very unclear at this point.
It's unclear, and we are in the business of like very large outcomes. The very large outcomes is what drives overall industry. It drives an individual fund, it drives a firm, it drives the whole industry. We're in the business of companies getting to many billions of dollars of value. And hardware has been harder for that. There's fewer examples of that today. That said, I'm a huge believer. I spend much more time in North Bangalore, where there's a lot more manufacturing than South Bangalore these days. And 2 out of the 4 investments, at least I was involved with this year, are hardware investments. And we're seeing that, look, the output in the public markets is, if you are an EMS company or any sort of hardware company today going public in India, you would have a fantastic outcome. So we're trying to see how we can build more of those companies. I think the other issue that we have is there's not enough people like you. There's not enough people who try and want to do this. That most people still will build today's AI and the next AI startup, than try to do something that is more physical. And yeah, look, there is overall there's not enough entrepreneurship in India still. But with that, we should probably wrap. Yeah. Thank you. Sure.
If you look at India, especially the public markets, the companies which have been successful are those which have been able to build the mass. For example, Maruti or Hero Honda, or if you take even for HM Motors, Royal Enfield has become a mass. So how the EV, from my question is Tarun, how do you think that you will be able to get that critical mass as a category? Because I see that there is a still price barrier, which is not making the EV a mass thing yet. It is slowly becoming. So it is not, and the technology development, the R&D is incremental. I feel it's not transformational or orbit shifting. It's rather incremental. So how do you address these 2 issues? On the second question is, are you trying to build anything similar to Enfield in future from Ather Energy?
Second question, unlikely, because of your first question. I think we'd like to build more mainstream stuff. To your first question, I think I think prices are coming down. 2 years ago, the only product that we had was like 1,65,000. Today we start at 1,25,000, 1,29,000, and we'll go down to almost about 1,00,000. And that's Ather. We are on the premium end historically. Others will touch 90K, 100K quite consistently, which is actually cheaper than your Activa today. I think the problem in EV today is people are still not aware of how good the math of EV is. But overall, I believe the answer is more tech. I think the only way out to reduce cost and to make things more mainstream is to throw a ton of money into technology, into bigger leaps constantly. So I think most stuff will come out, and internally cost structures have been falling dramatically. Like we've reduced our cost structure 70% over the last 3.5 years. And I think the trend will continue, which will allow more mainstream products.
Awesome. I know a ton of you have ton more questions, but what I'm going to do is speakers have to move. I'm going to let Shailesh also leave, but I'm going to maybe Tarun can stay back for just a few more minutes over the side for questions. At least maybe I'll take you. We can answer some questions on the side, but we're going to call this a close and give a big round of applause, please. And I have a small. Thank you. And one small token of appreciation from us.